My name is Dr. Mike Brown, and I'm really glad to be able to share with you and talk with leaders all across the city about just teacher retention. We are all committed our lives to education, to especially educating students who a lot of times are born into impoverished situations or born without all the great access and advantages that they deserve. And so for those leaders, I'm speaking to you. We also understand that when we're serving students and families who are in need of these of access and educational equity, and best practices, we understand that the situations are tougher, and so therefore it requires a lot more time, financial resources, sometimes a lot more stress, cause a lot more stress. But we're committed to this work, and we're committed to the lives of our families and students. And so sometimes when it comes to retaining teachers, we absolutely see that research shows that we lose more teachers than our more resource schools do. But we understand that what we're doing is a mission. And so the question is, what can we do as leaders to help retain our great teachers, to keep them in the classroom, to keep them in the field, to keep them on the battlefield for service, in service of our students and our families educationally. So we're going to walk through just some research to show us what we can do to really help support our teachers and keep them in the classroom where our kids and families need them. And so this presentation is entitled Tailoring PD for Teachers, a Personalized Learning Revolution. So first, I want to acknowledge in history where we've come from. So we celebrate the landmark case of Brown versus Board of Education, 1954. What many of us don't recognize that while the Supreme Court struck down the laws that legally segregated people based on race, what the Supreme Court cannot legislate was that white families had to send their children to schools where there were Black principals. And so while schools were now integrating and white and Black students were beginning to go to school with each other, white families were not comfortable sending white children to schools led by Black principals, Black leaders, and Black teachers. And so unfortunately, through 1963 and 1970, up to 93% of Black educational leaders lost their roles as principals in the South. And over 38,000 African-American teachers lost their teaching positions in the South. And so when we talk about bringing leaders of color to the instructional leadership role as principals and as teachers, we are literally trying to replenish the South. We're literally trying to undo the damage of racism and undo this wiping away of leaders of color, and to really bring us back into the educational sphere where we belong, where we can truly impact our students and our families and our community as a whole. Also, why is it important that we do this in the South? Well, because statistically, the South has the largest number of impoverished students who are attending public schools in the country. Out of all four regions, the South is the largest with 38% of the public school population. Therefore, if this country is ever going to improve public education, it's going to happen in the South. We can lead that charge. When it comes to how we can help support our teachers and keep our teachers in the classroom where they belong, I rely on the research of Dr. Richard Elmore, or Dick Elmore, as some of his literature says. I rely on him because he talks about the idea of shared leadership. Now, what does shared leadership have to do with teacher retention? When teachers are learning, where teachers feel like their expertise is appreciated, when teachers see that they have a voice at the table of leadership, title or no title, but when they see that their knowledge is being used for the betterment of their students and students throughout the building, they tend to stay. And so how a leader distributes their leadership in the building has a lot it will absolutely dictate and contribute to how teachers feel supported and feel cared for and feel loved in their building. And so when teachers do not feel meaningful, they will leave. And so distributed leadership absolutely is a major contributing factor to teachers staying in the building. I'll show you how. So there are three things that Richard Elmore says that we can do. And I want you to take these quotes and understand how this plays a role in keeping teachers in our building. Number one, he says improvement requires continuous learning, both by individuals and by groups. And so understand collective learning needs an environment in which learning is a normal activity. And this is not just for students, but this is also for adults. Teachers will never leave if they feel like they're constantly learning and being developed in your building. And so you have to make sure as a leader that we constantly have our teachers in places where they are learning. And so I want you to think, just take 2 seconds just to think about what will be specific practices that you can institute in your building to allow teachers to continuously learn. And I'm not just talking about PD. Thank God we're doing it because PD is needed, but I'm also not talking about sit and get PD, because if we're just doing all the talking, our teachers are just sitting there trying, and you hope that they're absorbing all the learning, that does not affect your professional development. All research bears that out. There needs to be stand and deliver. They need to be practicing whatever they're learning. And so making sure that there are a number of opportunities weekly and monthly for your teachers to actively learn in your building is a great part of what helps them stay in your building, because they are growing and they are developing. Another thing Richard Elmore talks about, he says leaders lead by exemplifying the values and behaviors they want others to opt into. And so if we want our teachers to be consummate learners, then we as the leader always have to be the lead learner in the building. We want kids to learn. We want teachers to learn. We have to show them that we're constantly learning. And so I want you to think about a way in which you can also put your learning on display for teachers to let them see that just the way you observe them and you give them feedback, and then they have to stand and they have to try to practice to make sure that they get it right and that they're improving. You should always be in a position to where you are also learning and continually working on your craft. And they need to see that. They need to constantly see that. And so learning is what's going to be happening. If learning is what you want your teachers to do, you have to create an environment to where they also see you learning. Thirdly, Richard Elmore also says that people cooperate with one another in achieving their goals when they recognize other people's expertise. It says that large-scale improvement requires a relatively complex kind of cooperation among people in diverse roles, which means this: if you want your school to improve, don't only acknowledge to your teachers what you're good at, you also need to acknowledge to your teachers what you're not good at. So here's the statement. At the bottom, it says, as the leader of whatever school you're at, my main area of expertise is this. So if you're good at financial management of the school, acknowledge that. If you are really, really great with K2 literacy, acknowledge that. But then say, for my school success, I need teammates who have expertise in blank. And so if you really, really struggle with literacy in the middle and upper school, you need to acknowledge that. If you struggle with, if you don't know, or if you lack expertise in understanding how do we help develop literacy in late learners or learners who are struggling in third grade, then acknowledge that as a gap and say, for my school success, I need teammates who have expertise in this and this. So acknowledge what you're good at, acknowledge your expertise, but also acknowledge your gaps. These gaps are where you are able to pull in teachers who are able to fill in those gaps. And so for one, the school is made better because now they're not relying on just what you're good at, but they're also relying on the collective expertise of your staff. Number two, it's great for leaders to communicate what they're not good at, because it also allows teachers to be vulnerable and to see that you're human, and allows them to be human in front of you, and it creates a growth mindset throughout the building. Number three, literally, you are bringing your teachers to the table now to allow their expertise to step up and to now be major players, and their knowledge to be on display for the rest of their staff and for your building to benefit from their expertise, which is really, really key. When it comes to shared and distributed leadership, we should not hire people who are just like us. We should also be ready to hire people who are not like us and who fill in the gaps that we have. When it comes to how do we really celebrate and support teachers, I talk about, I look at what we call a teacher acceleration plan, the TAP plan. And this is for, once again, the teachers at Spark. When they're at Spark, what do you do? And I have a number of documents that I've created for a number of schools. And you personalize them, customize them based on the teacher or your school. But whatever it is, and I'll actually attach a document or an example to this PowerPoint. But for whatever you do, whatever whatever TAP plan you institute for your teachers, there are 3 major questions that you're really kind of narrowing down and getting to, that you're asking your teacher who is at Spark. You say, I want to do something for this teacher. I want them to really grow in the school. And so here's one question you can ask. What are some educational areas in which I want to grow? Ask them that. Allow them to express the area in which they really, really want to explore. All right. Number 2, ask how will this professional development improve my instruction or their instruction and benefit all students? And so when you think about allowing them to attend other professional developments, whether they're being offered in the building or outside the building, just for their growth, always ask, how does their professional development or those new learnings help contribute to the students in the building? Last but not least, ask, what will my classroom or school look like when I've implemented the strategies that I've learned? And so as they're learning new strategies and new techniques, allow them to bring to the building and allow them to answer a question. This is what the building or my classroom will look like once I incorporate these new strategies that I'm learning, all right, or these new leadership strategies that I'm learning. What will the building look like? And these are taken from Stegman's research in 2020 about what will help keep teachers in the building and what helps with that shared leadership, that distributed leadership, to really help engage teachers in the leadership process in the building, with or without a title. And last but not least, just 4 ideas, very, very tangible ideas about what we can do to help teachers or support teachers as they're growing. And remember, teachers will not leave a building when they're learning. Teachers will not leave a building where they feel supported by leadership. All right. And so one thing you can do is help them with their advanced degrees. Now, we are not credentialing, organizations, so we don't offer advanced degrees, but paying for someone to get an advanced degree at a university in the area is great, because they are learning, national, they're learning national research and information, and they can bring in different ideas about the new educational trends that are happening all across the country, and they can bring that into the building. So paying, financially supporting their advanced degrees is wonderful. Or when I was at a school in Boston, my school did not pay for my advanced degree. That would have been wonderful. But what they did was they supported me through scheduling, through flexible scheduling. And so they understood that when I enrolled in Boston College for a master's degree in educational leadership, I told them what my class schedule was at Boston College. And they said, okay, we can move all of your classes up during the day. They literally changed my teaching schedule during the day so that I can leave the building early on certain days so I can get to Boston College and take my classes. And they made sure that, all right, when you get this degree, or as you're learning, that you make sure that you bring us in and that you share those learnings with our staff, with our students. And I did that. Secondly, as an administrator, have literature groups and book clubs in your building. You can host them in your building for teachers who are at Spark, for teachers who are ready for the next level of knowledge, for teachers who are hungry and eager to learn, for teachers you want to keep in your building. Host a literature group. Now, you can participate in it. You can lead it, but also you can also say, you know what, we'll support it by saying you can have this room after school. You can also say, I will purchase the books that you guys choose to read together. You can also say, I will give you guys, Panera or Starbucks gift cards, and you can host your every Thursday book club there. So there are a number of things that you can do to support the academic growth and the leadership growth of your teachers through literature groups and book clubs. A third idea is you can use advice and evaluations. Now, unfortunately, leaders who are not the instructional leaders of the building do not engage with teachers, unfortunately, in observations and feedback, and they should. And so if that's you, you need to be an active learner, and you need to be the instructional leader of your building, which means get active with the observations. What we then do is we usually focus on the teachers who are struggling the most. And we try to make them competent. We try to build their basic competencies so that their class is no longer on fire. Let's repurpose that time. If we take that time that we spend with our most struggling teachers and we start dedicating that to our teachers who are ready to take off, then we can really help them expedite student learning in their classrooms and around the building. And so using that time to observe teachers who are at Spark, these at Spark teachers who are trying to give them more time, not less time. Not less time, give them more time, and use a lot of that for advice, not for evaluations, but through observations and feedback cycles to where you're doing it constantly, and just once again, improving their improving their practice bit by bit to allow them to be a master teacher. Last but not least, allow these teachers who have Spark in their building to grow and to connect with national teacher networks. I think about different fellowships that teachers nationally become a part of. you should, you should ask them to be a part of that or recommend them for these programs. Think about National Board Teacher Certification, which also provides a network of other high-performing teachers all across the country. With social media and with internet, we are in a global society, so teachers can connect. You can connect your teachers with teachers all around the world, not just nationally. They can actually connect with the best teachers across the country. You can help by identifying these high leverage teacher networks to plug your teachers in to make sure that they're always bringing the best strategies back, once again, for their own development, but bring those strategies back to your school to where even your school can benefit. Remember, your main job is about, along with keeping teachers in the classroom and really bringing them and retaining them as brains, in your building. It's also helping understand where the school mission meets these individual teachers' goals and their ideas for what they want in education, and bring them together to make sure that the entire teacher staff is benefiting from the brains and from the work and from the development of these individual aspirant teachers. Your students can be better as your teachers are getting better. All right. So once again, I want you to think about these strategies as you go on, and I wish you much success. And just the last thing I always leave with all educators, no matter what level of education you're at, whether you're a teacher or whether you are a building leader, just understand that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Leaders, I want you to retain your teachers. Make sure your teachers are feeling loved. Make sure they're feeling supported, and make sure that they're constantly growing, because a teacher who learns in your building won't leave your building. Once again, I'm Dr. Mike Brown. It's so wonderful connecting with you. I will see you guys in the field. Thank you.